Suburbia, a place built on trust, safety, and the illusion of calm. Parents wave goodbye as they head out for work, date nights, or family events, leaving their children in the care of someone they believe is dependable, a babysitter. Often, it's a neighbor, a teenager from down the street, or a trusted friend's daughter. Babysitters are supposed to be protectors, the stand-ins for parents when they can't be there. But what happens when that trust is shattered? What if the very person invited into the home, trusted to care for the most vulnerable, turns into a monster? That question has haunted countless families over the years, because the truth is chilling. Not every babysitter has good intentions. Behind smiles and polite manners, some have hidden dark impulses. Rage, envy, or a desire for control that no one could see coming. For decades, newspapers and television broadcasts have carried terrifying headlines. Babysitter arrested in child's death. Teen babysitter on trial for murder. Each headline shocks communities, tearing apart the very foundation of suburban trust. Parents suddenly begin questioning, how well do we really know the people we leave our children with? Take a moment to imagine it. You hire a babysitter, maybe a familiar face, someone who's laughed with your children, played board games in your living room, and tucked them into bed. Hours later, your child's life is taken, not by a stranger in the dark, but by the very person you believed would protect them. That horrifying reality is not fiction. It's a nightmare that has played out in real cases across America and beyond. These crimes have shaken communities to their core, leaving parents fearful, neighbors suspicious, and investigators scrambling for answers. But why? Why would a babysitter, a role rooted in care and responsibility, commit such brutal acts? Was it a moment of uncontrollable anger? A sinister plan carried out under the guise of trust? Or something much deeper, hidden in their psychology long before they ever stepped foot in the home? The story we're about to uncover dives into these dark and disturbing cases. From high-profile trials that captivated the nation to lesser-known tragedies buried in local headlines, we'll explore the shocking truth about babysitters who became killers. This isn't just about crime. It's about betrayal. It's about the collapse of safety within the very heart of suburbia. It's about parents who will forever live with the haunting question, what if they had never opened their door to that perfect babysitter? And as we journey deeper, one thing will become terrifyingly clear. Monsters don't always lurk in shadows or alleyways. Sometimes, they're already sitting in your living room, smiling, trusted, and waiting for their chance to strike. In 1997, one of the most controversial babysitter cases in history unfolded in the quiet suburbs of Newton, Massachusetts. The community, known for its safety and family-friendly streets, was rocked by headlines that would ignite an international debate and divide public opinion for decades. At the center of the storm was Louise Woodward, a 19-year-old au pair from England. She came to America seeking new experiences, the chance to see the world, and to earn a little money while caring for children. For the Eapen family, she seemed like the perfect fit. Young, energetic, and eager to help. They entrusted her with their two sons, Matthew and Brendan. But within months, that trust would shatter in the most horrifying way possible. On February 4th, 1997, baby Matthew was rushed to the hospital with severe head injuries. Doctors quickly realized his condition was critical: skull fractures, retinal hemorrhages, and massive brain swelling. He had been shaken so violently that his tiny body could not survive the trauma. Days later, Matthew died, and investigators pointed the finger directly at the person who had been with him last: Louise Woodward. The trial that followed wasn't just about one tragic death. It became a battle of science, morality, and justice. Prosecutors argued that Louise had grown frustrated with Matthew, lost control, and violently shaken him in anger. They painted her as careless, overwhelmed, and dangerous. The medical evidence, they claimed, left no doubt. This was no accident. But Louise's defense told a different story. They argued that she was a scapegoat, a young girl far from home, caught in a medical mystery. Was it truly shaken baby syndrome? Or could Matthew's injuries have been caused by something else? An earlier fall, an undiagnosed medical condition, or a tragic accident beyond Louise's control? The courtroom became a battlefield of experts, with neurologists, pediatricians, and forensic specialists clashing over what really happened. The media swarmed the case, turning Louise into a household name. Some saw her as a cold-hearted killer. Others saw her as an inexperienced teenager facing the weight of a tragedy she never intended. When the verdict finally came, the world held its breath. Louise was convicted of second-degree murder. Gasps filled the courtroom, but just days later, the judge made a stunning decision. He reduced the conviction to involuntary manslaughter and sentenced her to time served. Louise walked free after 279 days in jail, sparking outrage from some and relief from others. The case of Louise Woodward left a deep scar on Suburbia. Parents questioned the very foundation of trust in childcare. Could they ever truly know what happened behind closed doors? Could a smile and a friendly accent mask hidden frustrations? Or something darker? Decades later, the case still lingers in the public's mind. Was Louise guilty of murder? Or was she simply a young woman trapped in circumstances far beyond her control? One thing is certain. The death of baby Matthew Eapen changed the way families view babysitters forever. And chillingly, it wouldn't be the last time a babysitter's smile hid something deadly. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. If the Louise Woodward case shocked the world, what came next would be even more disturbing. Because sometimes, the babysitter wasn't a young adult under stress or an overworked au pair. Sometimes, the babysitter was just a teenager. Teenagers babysitting has long been a tradition in Suburbia. Parents trust the cheerful girl down the street or the quiet boy from church to watch their kids for a few hours. It seems innocent, even safe. But as history has shown, that trust has, at times, ended in unthinkable tragedy. One of the most chilling examples unfolded in 1992 in the small town of Bellefontaine, Ohio. 15-year-old babysitter Krista Pike was watching a toddler when things spiraled out of control. Reports say Krista had grown frustrated and overwhelmed, unable to calm the child's crying. Instead of calling for help, she snapped, violently shaking and fatally injuring the baby. A community that had always believed teenagers were safe enough suddenly faced a horrifying truth. Youth doesn't guarantee innocence, but the darkness didn't end there. In another case, just a year later in Illinois, a teenage babysitter named Sarah Johnson was accused of deliberately killing the child she was supposed to protect. Witnesses described Sarah as quiet, shy, and even sweet. But beneath the surface, investigators suggested, lay jealousy and resentment. The child she was tasked to watch had something she didn't: the undivided love and attention of adults. It was a chilling motive, one that stripped away any sense of accident and replaced it with cold intent. Psychologists who have studied these cases point out that teenagers, while often mature enough to handle responsibility, can also be unpredictable. They're still developing emotionally, struggling with identity, peer pressure, and sometimes hidden rage. Add stress, like a crying child who won't stop, and it can spark a deadly chain of events. But here's the terrifying part. Outwardly, these teens looked just like anyone else. Neighbors waved to them, teachers described them as average students, and parents never suspected anything sinister. They weren't shadowy figures lurking in alleyways. They were the babysitters invited into family living rooms, given fridge privileges, and trusted with bedtime stories. When the truth came out, communities were left reeling. How could someone so young commit something so monstrous? Was it immaturity turned violent? Or was it a deeper, darker urge that had been there all along? These teenage babysitter cases shattered the illusion that age equals safety. They revealed something parents didn't want to face. Danger can come not from strangers, but from the very kids they thought they knew best. And if teenagers, barely more than children themselves, could commit such acts, what about those who carefully planned their crimes? What about the babysitters who weren't just overwhelmed, but who deliberately turned trust into terror? Those stories, perhaps the most terrifying of all, are what we'll explore next. Up until now, the stories have revealed tragedy born from frustration, anger, or immaturity. But in some cases, the horror goes even deeper. Because while many babysitter crimes may have started as snap decisions or loss of control, others were calculated, premeditated, and planned. And that is Suburbia's worst nightmare. The babysitter who walked into a home not just to watch a child, but with the intent to kill. One of the most chilling examples is the case of Christine Falling, often remembered as the child killer babysitter. In the early 1980s, Falling, a 17-year-old from Florida, seemed like the perfect caretaker for local families. Quiet, trustworthy, and always available, she was frequently hired to watch neighborhood children. But behind her seemingly innocent demeanor, Christine carried dark urges she couldn't control. Over a span of just 2 years, multiple children in her care mysteriously died. At first, doctors blamed illnesses, sudden infections, respiratory problems, or even accidents. But the pattern became undeniable. Each child had been left alone with Christine. Each death carried the same chilling signs of suffocation. Eventually, Christine confessed. She admitted to smothering at least 3 children, though investigators believed the number could be higher. When asked why, her answers sent shivers through the courtroom. She described voices and uncontrollable impulses. She even admitted that she killed because she was tired of kids crying. For parents who had once entrusted her with their most precious loved ones, the revelation was shattering. And Christine wasn't the only one. In 2013, in Wisconsin, a 14-year-old babysitter named Antonio Barbo was accused of luring his great-grandmother into a false sense of safety before attacking her with a hatchet. Though not a traditional babysitting case, it highlighted the same terrifying theme: trust weaponized against the vulnerable. What these cases show is that not all babysitter killings are sudden explosions of frustration. Some are carefully thought out, with the babysitter masking their dark intentions under the guise of normalcy. Smiling faces at the doorstep, polite thank yous to parents, and even playful moments with the children, all while hiding a deadly plan. This is the betrayal that haunts parents most. How can you protect against something you cannot see? How can you predict evil that wears the mask of innocence? Suburban life is built on routines: school runs, soccer games, barbecues, and, yes, babysitters. But stories like Christine Falling's prove that beneath the veneer of normalcy, monsters can lurk undetected. They don't always break in through windows or sneak through backyards. Sometimes they walk right through the front door, invited in with open arms. And when the truth comes out, it's too late. The damage is done. Family is broken. Community is shaken. And everyone is left asking the same haunting question: how could they not have seen it coming? As terrifying as these stories are, the final chapter reveals the deeper lesson hidden within them: the warning signs, the psychology, and the chilling reality of how close danger can truly be. The stories of babysitters who turned into killers are among the most haunting in true crime history. They cut deep because they don't just expose random violence. They shatter the foundation of trust that suburban families rely on every single day. Babysitters are supposed to be protectors, stand-ins for parents, guardians of innocence. But when that trust is betrayed, the consequences are devastating. From Louise Woodward's courtroom battle to the chilling acts of teenage babysitters, and finally to the calculated cruelty of Christine Falling, one theme is clear: evil doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it's invited in. Sometimes it smiles, plays, and tucks a child into bed before turning into something far more sinister. But what lessons can be drawn from these tragedies? Experts point to several. First, the importance of vigilance. Parents are often reassured by a friendly face, a neighbor's recommendation, or the convenience of someone nearby. But killers like Christine Falling prove that appearances can be deceiving. Careful vetting, background checks, and trusting instincts aren't overreactions. They are acts of protection. Second, psychologists remind us that warning signs often surface before tragedies occur. Sudden aggression, unusual obsessions, emotional instability, or troubling histories shouldn't be ignored. In many cases, hindsight revealed patterns that might have raised alarms, if only someone had connected the dots earlier. And finally, these cases force us to confront the unsettling truth about human nature. Most babysitters, of course, are loving and responsible. But the rare few who aren't reveal something terrifying. Danger doesn't always look like a stranger in the shadows. Sometimes it looks like the girl next door or the teen boy from down the street. The killers among us are often the ones we least suspect. For the families who lived through these tragedies, the pain never truly ends. Their homes, once safe havens of suburban comfort, became crime scenes. Their trust, once freely given, was forever scarred. Communities rallied, laws were debated, and yet the chilling reality remained. No system of safety is ever perfect. As we close this chapter, we are left with a haunting question. How well do you really know the people you trust with your children? Because in the end, the scariest monsters aren't the ones lurking outside. They're the ones already inside.